All right, Big Man. Today is Thursday. It's October 20th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Interesting guest today. I'm having Saagar Enjeti on from Breaking Point's Monster Political YouTube show. I just want to say off the top right here, right now, is that I know we don't usually do politics. I stray away from it. It's fucking a can't win situation, and it's so divisive, and people are at each other's necks and whatever. But I just want to let people know Saagar is a fan of the show. He's a fan of Barstool, and I believe kind of what his show does, and you know, having different viewpoints and how it works and everything. So this isn't me just tossing up a political shill. Just want to give people a little bit of background information there. So before anyone freaks out, it's not going to turn into a political show. But yeah, that's really it. And before we really get things going, it's a great show, by the way. Like really interesting stuff about the climate and how everything changed and when it changed and what made it change. So I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll really enjoy it. So before we really get into it, though, I do want to talk about our friends at Game Time. Obviously, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports, created by fans for fans. Game Time is a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. And they guarantee the lowest price. If you haven't given Game Time a shot yet, you don't know what you're waiting for, or I don't know what you're waiting for, excuse me, because you guys are really going to love this app. MLB playoffs are underway. Blackhawk season's here. Obviously, the Bears are here. The Bulls are here. Now's the time to give Game Time a shot, people. I promise you. If you've been eyeing those Bulls tickets, you're like, oh, man, they're going to be good this year. I'm waiting for them to drop. Go to Game Time, okay? We've had tons of Barstool fans using it, hitting us up on social about the great deals they're getting. And if you download Game Time, just go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Really no brainer, folks. Just go use Game Time. All right, let's hop into the interview. All right, so we're in studio today. I'm with my guest, Saagar Enjeti. I got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right.
Good to see you, man.
Saagar Enjeti in Chicago, the host of Breaking Point's Monster YouTube channel.
Thank you, sir.
With Crystal Ball. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you, man. I've been a fan for a while, so it's cool to meet you guys in person. It's surreal for me to be in a Barstool office because I remember being in college and I thought the coolest thing in the world were the Barstool smoke shows.
They still exist, too.
Does it really? I thought it was retired.
It still exists.
I swear to I remember we all knew this girl once who got the smoke show, and we were like, holy shit, this is like our fucking claim to fame.
That's what's great, is it? So it still exists. And, you know, I think there's like some people are like, oh, I'm surprised you guys still do that. But now it's like their careers that are spawned out of it.
Yeah, this was pre-Instagram too. So I bet a lot of these girls are making a shitload of money.
So many. So many. And that's kind of the name of the game. And people like to see it's still different here, localized in Chicago, which is good though, because when someone's town gets highlighted, like everyone's like, oh shit, you see that? So you're right. Yeah. Same thing, exactly what you said. So, and we always ask for permission and everything. It's not like we're just, ripping this or whatever.
You guys have been treated very unfairly, which is why I'm a fan.
People are just, and that's why obviously I want to have you in, because whenever anything happens, people will send me the clip. And they'll be like, hey, he had your back today. Go check out this timestamp at this timestamp. They talked about Barstool. They talked about Dave. So thank you for that, obviously.
No, it's interesting. I know that Dave, and by the way, you guys can edit whatever you want. But, like, I know Dave probably doesn't want to be seen as political. But, like, to me, he's an important figure, whether he likes it or not. Mm-hmm. And, I've never met the guy. I don't really know. Like, I've only really paid attention to him. I've known, obviously, who he is, basically, since I was a kid. But in terms of viewing him and Barstool like as political, I don't even want it to be political.
Yeah.
But everything is political.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like when I talk about it in that sense. So it's not that I'm like trying to put you guys on a team or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just see the existence of itself. Like when I was in college, right? Nobody thought about the smoke show. It was just like whatever. But today that's like, it's like something. It's like coded. Yes. It's coded in a way. I don't want it to be that way, but it is, unfortunately. So that's kind of the way that I like to talk about it.
How old are you?
So I'm 30.
30. So I'm 32.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I think
because I don't remember growing up. Like I mean, obviously you're
happened
a kid.
So quick.
Yeah, you're worried about reading the box scores in the newspaper about the Cubs or I don't know when I just don't remember people talking about Bush at the lengths that they do now.
So they did, but it was different, Eddie. So what I would say is I think everything changed. This is another reference. Actually, you and I are about the same age, so you might remember. remember Rolling Stone and UVA Jackie? You remember that rape on campus story?
Correct, I do.
So I was in fraternity at the time. That was like the reckoning. And then it was total bullshit. And 50% of the people, though, didn't act like it was total bullshit.
Yeah.
And that combined with a couple of different things. So there was rape on campus, Rolling Stone. There was Trayvon Martin, which was also 2000. This all happened in the same year, 2013. And then Ferguson was 2014. I would say 2014, and there's a lot of data actually to back this up, which is called the Great Awakening, which is basically when white people became more woke on racial issues than actually people of color. And it's the college-educated kind of mindset combined with the end of the Obama administration, and then it was turbocharged for the entire population when Trump was elected in 2016.
Okay.
So it was like a 2 to 3 year period where all of American culture completely flipped, which is why people like you and I are like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
You know, like I remember a time, as you do too, where like it was funny to laugh at some shit on Total Frat Move. 3 years later, it was political. And I was like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it on my campus. It was weird because I actually went to school and then I went to grad school. I can't tell you how different it was because grad school happened while Trump was both elected and kind of in office. And then I was going to GW, which is a liberal school, but I would call it like Hillary liberal, where everyone's like, yeah, you know, whatever. But they're political, but like with a capital P, I like to call it, as in they like to like follow polls and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then it became like, no, anybody who disagrees with me is like a moral enemy.
Yeah.
And that is what frankly really turned me off and kind of changed my political evolution. And unfortunately, I think that's really when the culture changed significantly.
And so you said the three things, obviously the UVA, Rolling Stone.
I think UVA was strike one.
First one?
Yeah. To me, that was a really important moment because it's like I said, it was fake. It was a completely fake story.
Yeah.
And actually that lady has been both sued, she's been damages, all of that. But half the culture was basically like, it doesn't matter if it's fake. We have to treat it if it's real. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, do you remember Obama and Daniel Craig and Biden did that video where they're like, it's on us to like stop sexual assault?
I do not actually.
Okay, so this was like a big thing in like 2014. Once again, and it was all combined like in the same milieu. And there was like this, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but you put that together with Trayvon Martin. Again, Ferguson really changed everything. And like I said, the Great Awakening, and you know, for anybody who is not happy with what I'm saying, you can go look it up. Racial attitudes amongst college-educated whites, like I said, basically became more quote unquote woke than people who are actually Black, Latino, people of color. And I think that was the big switch in American culture.
And that became a situation where people started looking at who was responding to what and who was saying what about it.
Right.
And then if you were not saying the correct things,
then you're not an ally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But if you were, then you're okay.
Then you're good. Yeah. And see, that's when I remember when guys started putting shit in their Tinder bios. You know, when they were like, they were like BLM, or they were like, this was pre-Me Too, so it's hard to describe, but it's like, or like fuck the whatever fuck Mitt Romney, whatever, you know, GOP, etc. That was really when I started, and that's when I don't really like to pay attention to, like, call it capital P politics, as in like what people in Washington care about. Basically, I built my career like betting against whatever people in DC.
Yeah,
but I like to pay attention to like, what are normal people doing? You know, like how do normal people conceive of themselves politically?
Yeah.
And watching kind of college educated people really just change completely was wild to me because I was there and then it all changed like under my nose. And I think unfortunately it politicized an entire segment of American culture which hadn't been there. Oh, you know, another thing I should put in there is Kaepernick, which is relevant probably to what we're talking about today. I think that also that changed everything in terms of the way a lot of normal people engaged.
And that brought it to sport as well.
Exactly, exactly. So that was like the first gunshot, right? And then that, you know, the debate and Trump and I mean, shit, man, I covered that stuff.
Yeah.
I was at the White House when Trump did that thing. Remember what was it? The Patriots were supposed to come, and then they didn't come. And he held some rally on the South. I was literally there. Oh, yeah. I was covering it, you know. Yeah. It was such a wild experience like, to take it.
I'd imagine, dude. I'd imagine. But you're right. I don't know. College is just kind of, that was the whole Mizzou time too, right?
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Remember that?
Was that 2015? You're right though. That was right around that time.
Somewhere in that area, I feel.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like, try to put yourself back in 2011. What were you, like a college junior or something?
2011, yeah, I was a junior.
Yeah, you're probably junior.
Or sophomore, junior.
It was a completely different world.
Yeah.
Obama first term, everyone's like, yeah, whatever. You know, it's like just going about their lives. TFM is taking, Barstool's really starting to take off.
Yeah.
These things, but they're not political in any nature. The internet's like becoming nascent. That's around when I started listening to like the Joe Rogan podcast. But I think that in those interim like 5-6 years, just everything completely changed, and not in a good way.
No, yeah, it's crazy, man. You could say anything and someone will twist it and make this opinion of you or make it political.
Yeah, it is really difficult. And, you know, we were talking a little bit before about like what it means to be political today, and like it sucks. You know, some people are, I mean, like young kids sometimes are like, I really want to do what you do. I'm like, think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You're like, you're just like, you know,
exactly. Yeah.
Maybe don't.
Yeah. No. So let's kind of start at the beginning though. So you're from College Station, then you went to George Washington.
Yes.
You still live in DC.
Yeah, I still live in DC.
How did the ascend to media happen?
So, oh man, it was a weird story. So like this is really, again, difficult to describe. And actually I'm curious because we were just talking about this. Domestic politics at that time, nobody really gave a shit. So try to think about Mitt Romney. If people didn't like Romney, it was like, whatever. You know, he wasn't the figure that politicians are today. So domestic politics really wasn't hot, and I wasn't really into it. I just, you know, I like to think about like whatever the raging debates are. So I actually started out as a foreign policy guy. So I wrote a lot about Afghanistan. The only reason I got into politics, I was very against the Iraq War. I grew up in a town in College Station where the George H.W. Bush Library literally is. So I'm like in the epicenter of pro-Iraq war. And I was, you know, like I've always been a shit stirrer. I was like, I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I knew some people whose either brothers or, you know, people were sent to Iraq, people were killed in Iraq. And I was like, this is wrong. I was just very against the war, which was really not popular at the time. Anyway, so that's how I got into politics, foreign policy, all of that. And it was kind of that way up until Trump. So the way I got into media is actually Tucker Carlson, who, you know, now is the Tucker that we know. But at that time, he really wasn't on TV very much. He was running this outlet called The Daily Caller. And I interviewed with him and some other people. And they were like, we just need a foreign affairs guy. And I was like, listen, man, I'm getting a job in media, in journalism. It's probably like this. Like, how many people want to be a sports podcaster? A gajillion.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same level of competition. I jumped at the chance, and I started out covering the Pentagon. So that was it. And then Trump got elected, and it was like my whole life changed.
Yeah. No shit. So you were like, what was different about Tucker then?
Well, I wouldn't say it was different. It was just, he's not the household name. I mean, today he's the number one show on cable. A lot of people forget this. Tucker had a very up and down career. So he started out on CNN's Crossfire. Well, first of all, he started out as a writer. Then he went to Crossfire, which was that show with Jon Stewart and that whole thing. Anyway, so that got canceled, and then he got a PBS show, and then that got canceled, and then he got an MSNBC show, and then that got canceled. So in the interim years, he started The Daily Caller, which is kind of like a right-wing tabloid, I think is fair to say. Anyway, so like that's what he was doing, and it was really only the year after I started, in 2014, that he was started to do some Fox News, and then in like 2016 did he even get his show. And it didn't even really become the juggernaut that it is today until like 2 years ago. Yeah. So, and people don't seem to remember that, but like he at one point was not the king that he was on cable.
So were you working like hand in hand with him at all, or was
I mean, I wouldn't say hand in hand, but like, you know, he like knew who I was. Yeah. He interviewed me like personally. Yeah. That was cool. Yeah. It was nice, but I was more working under his editorial staff. Gotcha. As there's a guy named Jeff Ingersoll. He's the first guy who hired me. I'm still friends with him to this day. He still runs the outlet. He's kind of the guy who trained me on like what to look for. And I think you guys will relate to this, but the best thing I ever did, what I learned there is if you want to be in media today, you can't just be like the writer guy. Like most people who start in media at a traditional media corporation, they've never written their own headlines. I'm sure you guys are probably the same. It's like on the internet, you have to be writer, producer, creator, marketer. You need to run your own Twitter. Like nobody's going to do any of this shit for you. You got to learn all this shit for yourself. So I was in the grinder for 4 or 5 years straight, just doing it kind of all myself, like working my way up the ranks. My big break is when I got promoted to White House correspondent, and I was only like 25 years old. Nice. So I'm like literally sitting in the White House press briefing room, like asking Sarah Sanders a question. It's like fucking Jim Acosta here, and you know, like
that must have been pretty wild.
Oh, it was wild, man. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I'm like 25, but the thing is with Trump is like anything was possible. Like he was so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And all the traditional centers of power didn't operate like normal. Like today, 25-year-old is not getting an interview with the president. I got 4 interviews with the president. Like today, 25-year-old new arrival in the White House press briefing room, they're not getting called on. I just gamed the system. Like I figured out how to ingratiate myself with the right people so that they would learn my name, so that she would call on me in the press briefing room.
Yeah.
And within like 3 weeks, I'm getting called on. Within a month, the Trump was calling on me at these press conferences. And so like, man, it was truly like, as a career maker, it was awesome.
No shit,
Yeah.
dude. Those get heated sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That's why it was hot. It was fun. It was like, I always told people this. They're like, you're a foreign affairs guy. Like, why would you do this? And I said, you don't understand. If you go, anytime you go on vacation, you travel around the world during the Trump years, people will be like, oh my God, what is going on with Donald Trump? It was the biggest story in the world, in the whole world. Everybody was interested. So like for me, I was like, I have to be at the center of the action. I have to cover this. It was such a surreal experience. And it was just a game, man. And that's really kind of how I learned what I wanted to do with Breaking Points. Because I was looking around in the press briefing room and I'm like, none of you were asking anything relevant to how anybody in this entire country thinks about politics, wants to actually know. It really like gave me a lot of disdain for the way that traditional media covers politics. Like that's when I first saw the hole. I was like, there's a massive opening here.
Yeah.
That was the inception.
And now how much would you see was put on for what people can hear and see?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Versus when those doors closed and those
Yeah.
cameras were flipped off, was that person from this station to that station like, yo, like we got what we needed. That's all that matters. Like,
dude, it's theater. That was the other thing. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is all bullshit. All this is fake.
Yeah.
As in the people who are, quote, adversarial, they're kissing these officials' asses like nobody's business. CNN literally has a bottomless expense account. They treat these people to drinks like you would not believe, man. Everybody in Washington knows the game. If you go out at night and you know exactly where to go, at that time it was the Trump Hotel. You walk into the lobby of the Trump Hotel. You're going to see every single Trump official right there. And you're going to see a reporter from the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN. They're all gathered around the table. Everybody's having drinks. Everybody's having fun. Everybody hangs out together. Everybody knows who's dating who. I almost said a different word.
hey, you could say that on this show.
Yeah. All right, fine. Everybody knows who's fucking who, and like, oh my God, did you hear so and so got with so and so? The amount of like cross intra fucking and like drinking and all the it's exactly what people think. It's all real. I've seen it. Like I've seen it with my own eyes, and that's why I was like, this is fake. Like I literally am watching you ingratiate yourself, and then when the camera turns on, you're like, moral stand against democracy. Like, this is fake.
Yeah,
this is all fake.
How do you deal with that though?
Well, I did. That's why I left. That's why I do what I do now. That's how I deal with it.
So you go from foreign affairs
Yeah.
to obviously then you're asking the press secretary stuff.
Yes.
And then you go to, what was it before Breaking Points you were with?
So I was with The Hill.
You were with The Hill.
The Hill.
Okay.
So really what happened is that I wanted to get the fuck out of there. I was like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this farce anymore.
Yeah.
Because, look, I mean, I was pretty good at playing the game, I think. I mean, I got 4 interviews with the president in 2 years. That actually think this had the second most amount of interviews with the guy on the record except for Sean Hannity. So anyway, and the way that you do that is like, here's the thing. I had to play the game too, man. I had to take these people out. I had to learn like who they hung out with, because at the end of the day, the White House is all about access. How much access they are willing to give you. Nothing else. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. And these people are gross. Like, this is not a commentary on the Trump people, because the Biden people are exactly the same. All people who are controlling access to power, they're going to milk you for everything they can get.
Yeah.
They want this and that, and they want to call and yell at you about some headline, and everybody knows the game, and you're like, I didn't write it, even though it did.
Yeah.
And you're like, my editor wrote it.
Yeah. It was sorry.
It's like, exactly. And so there's everything is a farce. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So I had 2 options. I could go take this job at the Hill with Crystal, which, by the way, was everybody told me not to do. Or I could go and become a White House correspondent at a more prestigious outlet, which I won't name. Every single person told me to take that, because that you're a made man. That means I'm good for the rest of my life. Middle class job. I'll have this salary. I'll do a couple of appearances on cable news, like, oh, today President Trump said this, and et cetera. I just didn't care. I didn't care about any of the traditional. I used to get invited to these embassy parties, like the French embassy or whatever, and man, there's like top shelf liquor, and like everything's off the record, and the French people are trying to schmooze you, and the Trump people are there, the government officials are all there. This is all very like uniparty stuff. And I was like, this is gross. Because I'm a guy, like, I like to listen to Rogan. I was always, like, on the internet, you know? I was like, I know that people want something different.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about The Hill was it was open. We could do anything we wanted. They kind of didn't realize what was going on. So Crystal and I got together, and we were like, look, we kind of have a similar view of the world. Because she also worked at MSNBC, and she got fired. Because she gave a very courageous interview, or a monologue in 2014, where she said Hillary shouldn't run again. She should not run for president. And that caused a massive shitstorm. And she said all this publicly.
Yeah.
Dude, the head of the network said that if she ever wanted to talk about Hillary again, that she had to clear it with him.
Wow.
Because the Hillary campaign freaked out and basically called them. And they're like, if you ever do this again, we will fuck your appearance, like your staff on our campaign. You're not going to get any scoops. This is all insider shit.
Yeah.
So her and I we weren't like burned by the system, but we both like had a healthy disdain for it.
Yeah.
So we got together and we were like, okay, like what's an interesting show? And it's like, well, right and left who both hate the establishment and are kind of covering the things that deserve to be covered. And yeah, man, I mean, the other thing was the Hill had a YouTube channel, which was dead, that they weren't posting. And we were like, no, so Crystal and I come in. There was another guy named Buck Sexton. He hosts, he actually replaced Rush Limbaugh. So he left and
He's
I
with
came in.
Travis now, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so he left, and he's kind of the guy who brought me in to fill in for him. And he was like, hey, I think you should take this job. And that's how Crystal and I like got together, and we were like, okay, like we are going to create something very different. And the luckiest thing we had, man, is it's just the show just hit so quickly and like became a hit so fast that the Hill couldn't shut us down. Because they hated what we were doing.
Yeah.
But by the time they noticed, we were too big.
And why did they hate what you were doing?
Because we were fucking up all their access. Because we were telling the truth. Like we were saying how Washington works.
Yeah.
So these are all like classic examples I use. So here's all I said. So for people who don't know.
And to give people more context too. So
Yeah.
you are the more right-leaning one.
Yeah,
she was
that's
the
right.
more
Right.
left-leaning
She's the
one.
left-leaning host.
And you guys are both unhappy with the establishment, so you both shit on everything. Though.
Exactly.
Okay.
And are willing to shit on, quote unquote allies.
Yes.
Which you're not supposed to do.
Yes.
What people don't understand is there's a whole system, which is like if you're on the right, you like the made man thing.
Yeah.
It really is the mafia. Like if you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
You're good. I imagine working at ESPN is somewhat the same. Even if you get fired, you're probably you're like in the club.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like somebody else will hire you. Like you'll be fine. You get a podcast, some bullshit deal, etc. It's the same thing. Like as long as you're on the team within the blinders, you're good to go. But you're not allowed to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Same thing on the left. And so we just broke that model. And the thing was though, is people started to take notice. So I'll give a classic example is Maxine Waters. I don't know if anybody knows who she is. She's the chairwoman of the Financial Services Committee. Anyway, so what I said, this is all I said. I said, because of the seniority system, the way it works on the Democratic side is if whoever has been in office the longest, they get to be the chairwoman or chairperson. It's a terrible system, if you ask me, because it has nothing to do with merit. Yeah. And it means that as long as you're from a safe district, if you stay in office for 40 years, you not only have somebody who's like 9,000 years old, you also have somebody who is deeply ideological. Anyway, so this is all I said. Maxine Waters will be chairwoman of that committee till the day she dies. Her communications director called my bosses at the Hill, and they were like, he's threatening her life by saying that. I said, and they wanted me to apologize. They said, if he doesn't apologize, and here's the thing, the way that DC companies make money is they were doing some event, which was like The Hill, sponsored by Bank of America, with Maxine Waters.
Yeah.
So they like need her to come.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, maybe she won't go if he doesn't apologize. And I was like, fuck you, I'm not apologizing. I was like, fire me. I won't apologize. I'm like, that's one example. Another one is TikTok. So I did a whole thing about TikTok law. And this is a crazy story. And this, by the way, is totally publicly available information about people who were working for the government who are now working for TikTok. So I did this whole thing just on LinkedIn data of like the head of Obama's cybersecurity initiative was like working for TikTok. And I was like, no, this is bullshit. This is crazy. You're literally working for the Chinese government. Like you're a lobbyist for the Chinese government. And same thing. What do you think they said? Called my boss's boss. They said he's exposing them, putting their lives in danger, all this, and wanted me to apologize. So this is how they work the system. Like they don't call you, they call your bosses. And they try to put the financial lien on you.
Yeah, put the squeeze.
And so that's why we left, because we're like, I can't deal with this shit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
You know, and even if I didn't apologize, which I never did, every single time I ever did a segment about it, you think that's not going to be in the back of your head? Like, I can't be free.
You can't, yeah.
There's only one way, which is to be only 100% beholden to your audience. Like anybody, I'm wrong a lot. I like to do monologues every 6 months about stuff that I'm completely wrong about, but it's because I got it wrong. Like not because somebody is telling me what to say, or at worst, because I don't feel comfortable not saying what I know to be true. Like anything I say is because I think it.
And it's easier to tell the truth because,
dude, it's so much easier.
There's people who just are constantly living in their lies. At some point, you're going to get caught.
Of course. But the crazy thing is, though, man, you don't, because even if you beclown yourself in public, as long as you beclown yourself on the right team, you will always have a job. Yeah. Look at all these people at CNN. How many times have they been wrong? They get promoted. Like watching Jim Acosta act like a clown and then get promoted to chief White House correspondent and then get his own show. That's proof. Don Lemon and all these people, all these other folks, you can literally have declining ratings as long as you are on the team and you do it in the right way. You're good to go. Yeah. And like that's the danger of the system. And one of the things I love about the internet and why I'm a big fan of Barstool everywhere is because we actually have to respond to the market. Like the way these cable companies make money, ESPN is a great example. Do you know why they're so rich and they have so much money? Because the cable companies pay them to be a part of the bundle. Their ratings could go to zero and they're going to make $1 billion in profit every year. Last year, the cable companies collectively declined by 30-something% in their ratings. They made $3.5 billion in profit. Not revenue, profit, collectivized. Why? Because they have a 7-year deal with Cox Communications and all these other Comcast, these cable companies, who pay them the vast majority of their revenue. People like us actually have to be beholden to an audience. There's pluses and minuses to that, to be in the click game and all that. It must be nice to have recurring revenue, but like I'm going to bet on anything I say, the popularity, etc., is backed up because there's a connection, not because there's a multi-billion-dollar cable company backstopping my whole business. That's the facade that we all have to pull it off of.
Yeah. No, and it's now. So the Hill. Who was the backing though? Who was the
Hill?
Like
the Hill.com. Yeah, they owned the owner.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like you said, major corporate sponsors like Bank of America and whatnot.
The point is, bro, their money comes from advertisers.
Yes.
And not just advertisers. Like in DC, there's a very specific type. Like we're not talking about like Kraft cheese. Yeah. We're talking about the Association of Bankers, the National Restaurant Lobbying Association. These people, again, I bet the listeners have never even heard this. Those people wield enormous power. Enormous. They have massive buildings on K Street, which is where all the lobbying organizations are. They throw these massive parties. Anybody who's been to one of them, I've been to one of them before. It's cool. It's nice, right? But it's like that's how the game works. And that's why you're never supposed to say what you actually think. Yeah. Because when you do, then you're out the game.
And so now you and Crystal started Breaking Points. Yes. Has it gone better than you ever could imagine?
I could never imagine it. Yeah. I mean, I thought we were fucked. Not fucked, but I was like, I hope it works out. Yeah, it was like, took out a shitload of credit card debt. Crystal and I were like, hope it works. My only thing was, I was like, just cover costs. I was like, just please. I mean, you guys know this. Content is expensive, especially now. You guys are running nice cameras. I have some nice cameras. All this stuff. We have a staff of like 12 people that we have to pay. All this just to get shit turned around quickly. Anyway, I mean, the point is that within 2 weeks, we're like, oh my God, we're gonna be fine. Like we have a direct subscription, like $10 a month type program. Enough people signed up that we had our bills paid, and I was like, okay, beautiful, we could do this, and not just do this. People showed up for it in such a big way, and had so many demands. We're like, well, shit. Now we have to hire people. Yeah. So it's like we hired more people, we have partners, we have more content. We just launched another show on the days that we don't do the show, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it has gone bigger than I can ever imagine. And honestly, like it's 100% the audience, but also I gotta, Rogan, we called him before we went. We were like, dude, we're terrified. We're like, I don't know what we're gonna do, all this. And he was like, listen, I got your back. 100%.
Now, then starting this or
before we
started
went on the show? Before we did Breaking Points. Oh, no. So we'd already been on Joe Rogan before.
Okay.
One time.
Okay.
So we went on twice, once before we left and once after we left. Yeah. And I mean, so he knew who we were. Yeah. And he was so kind, man. Like we reached out to him. We're like, dude, we're really scared. Like we don't know what to do. And, to have the backing of the number one guy in the world to just be like, I got your back. Like no matter what, I will help you. And it wasn't just him. It was so many people. People like Andrew Schultz, like Tim Dillon, all these folks. I'd never even met Tim Dillon. The guy helped me like pump the show, Yeah. The whole like audience of just people out there who are kind of doing a similar thing and like believe in a new vision. It's because of them that we were able to get the word out. And then from there, like, that's why I try and pay it forward too.
Yeah.
To anybody who's doing something similar.
Yeah.
Like, it's essential.
Yeah, that's nice. And what's the Rogan bump really like?
Oh, well, I can tell you the bump
Yeah.
pre-Spotify, holy shit.
Yeah.
If I recall 100,000 YouTube subs in 3 days after we went, 100,000 YouTube subs in 3 days, if I recall, post Rogan, on top of, I want to say the videos that he put out of us also got like millions of views. We didn't have a podcast at that time, so I can't tell you.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do know. Well, here's the other thing: I can't tell you what the Rogan bump is because we went on our first week.
Yeah.
All I know is like it didn't hurt.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, well, so before we launched, we were number 3 in the world, like on Spotify. Anybody who is listening, new podcasts get a boost in the algorithm. So we were like number 3 in the US, but like we were number 1 political pod for like months because of Rogan.
Because of that, yeah.
So it's real, man. That's all I could say.
Yeah, but that's the thing too, where he gets like such a bad rap, but in the end, it's like if you really pay attention, he had you guys on, and he did that because he knows what you guys are about.
Yes,
you know. And
well, the thing is, look, the whole bad rap on him really pisses me off because he is such a nice guy, and also, dude, anybody who actually listens to Rogan knows that the real most controversial things he believes are like the Sphinx is 12,000 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're an actual Rogan fan, which I have been for, like, that was the surreal thing for me, was being in the studio and be like, dude, I've been listening to this shit since I was in college. Like I used to listen to this shit when I was broke as fuck and I was on the metro.
Yeah.
So like for me to be in this room right now, I'm like, what is going on in my life? But yeah, I mean, I just think that anybody who is a critic doesn't actually listen to him. I imagine it's the same with Dave. I think it's the exact same with Barstool.
Yeah.
It's like people who listen, like, they know. So fuck everybody else. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just, a Google search, and that's what. Oh, okay. Or someone
some
tells
bullshit
me,
clip on Twitter that's a minute and a half that could even be deceptively edited, and it's like, well, what do you know? You don't know anything. Do you listen? If you listen, here's the full context.
Yeah.
That's the stuff which just drives me nuts. And people do it to me too. People do it to Crystal. It's just, I mean, it's part of the game. Like, it is what it is. But to be honest, I mean, the more people attack you, honestly, just the bigger you get. Yeah. The better off you are. So I'm like, fine. Fuck it,
in a fucked up way. That's how it is. Yeah. And that's worked out well for Dave. He's embraced the
So
haters.
Rogan told me this privately. He said it publicly so I can share it.
Yeah.
He said after the cancellation, he got 2 million new subscribers. So 2 million, bro.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah. How does that work?
I mean, I know how it works.
Yeah.
Which is, you guys should go watch him live, man. Like,
he
is on fire. And the crowds right now are fucking
nuts,
hot, dude. They know because they're there, and there's like a feeling of like, we're here because fuck those people.
Mm-hmm.
I see it in my, we're doing a show here in Chicago. That's why I'm in town. I see it with my folks who come to our show. Obviously, it's like 1/15 of the size or whatever. But been to a Tim Dillon show, to a Schultz show, like any of these other places where people are playing on the line, like playing with something fiery and hot. Like the feeling is the best that it's ever been. Yeah, I think right now.
That's awesome. But now let me ask you this: when it comes to that, and it's great, and I feel like 95% of those people get it. Yeah, but you can never help that like 5% who thinks that they get it, but they're not totally clued in, and they're like the bad fan, and it's like, and then that's what gives a stigma to your fan base and what you're about. Yeah, that's hard because that happens to Barstool a lot.
Oh, like some asshole in a stool in like a Saturday for the Boys hoodie.
Yeah, or like the people who will like just back in the old like real comment section days where people leave a bunch of shitty comments, and then an advertiser or someone will see it and they'll be like, oh well, this is what this site's about.
Let's parse this, right?
It's not us.
The idea that we are do we accept, in the West, generally we accept this, individuals have human agency. So if we accept that, how is it my fault that a guy who happens to listen to me, or a girl, says something shitty online to somebody? How in the world is that my fault? Yeah. I mean, and by the way, we accept this for a lot. When somebody commits political violence, do we blame it on the person that they happen to be a fan of? The answer is yes, if it's the right politician. But no, if it's the wrong politician, right? So a guy who's a Bernie Sanders supporter shoots up a bunch of congressmen and almost kills somebody. Okay, we don't talk about that. And by the way, I don't think that we should. I don't think the fact that this guy, James Hodgkinson, who was, a Bernie fan, is relevant at all, because I think that some people are fucking crazy. Yeah. But what drives me nuts is, like you said about the Barstool thing, or the comments like, what are you supposed to do? have
Yeah.
no comments.
Yeah.
People are weird online. Like
Yeah.
maybe I grew up online. Like I'm just used to seeing fucked up shit. Same, like you said, in terms of sometimes people will be like, look at their. So we have polls, right, on our YouTube channel, and people will take screenshots of the polls as evidence that we're like right or left wing, bro. Like, first of all, it's a YouTube poll. It's not scientific. Like, here's the truth, people. We're doing it for the fucking algorithm, okay? That's it.
For the fucking,
like, we're doing it to keep engagement up on the channel.
Get the clicks,
It is representative only of the 70,000 people who happen to be on YouTube who are clicking. And guess what? It's just fun. This happened during the whole Bernie Bros thing. They'd be like, Bernie Bros online or being mean to women. Yes, I think it is true that there are men online who are mean to women. I think it's true there are women online who are mean to men. I just reject completely the idea that because so-and-so is like a fan of someone else, that whatever they do, that person is responsible. Especially if people are clear. We're like, hey, we don't endorse X, Y, and Z. But I'm not I'm not Orwellian. Like, I can't control them. And nor should I. Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, I'm wrong. Do your own research.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. Like, here are the tools in my thought process. Use it for your life. Like, if you take it, do whatever you want with it. And yeah, man, I can't imagine how frustrating that would be, especially with an advertiser to try and explain. You're like, I don't control these people.
Yeah.
Nor should I.
Yep.
Like, isn't it crazier to think that I do control these people?
I know, right? And that's literally the Barstool cycle. Is some blue check mark, some other, they'll take a shot, and then Dave will respond.
Right.
And then, it's a punch for punch at that point. And then our fans are loyal and they're rabid. And then they'll just comment and they'll start going at her, which we always say we don't condone. Like, hey, we didn't tell anyone to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's always like that person goes private or they delete their Twitter. And then it's like Barstool's bad because...
I've seen that happen with Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, is Dave liable for the fact that people like him? Like, they say, well, that's not his fault. And it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. And actually, this is what they never will understand, which is that whenever you have loyalty to someone, like you're having the agent, and I've done that before. For example, I heavily defended Rogan. Like I went out and like fully attacked anybody who was going after him. I never spoke to him throughout that entire process. Okay? Not once. You know why I did it? Because A, the guy has been a personal friend. Yeah. And even if I had never met him, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I do that for people all the time.
Case in point, Dave. Like,
right.
You never met him.
I have never met Dave Portnoy. I've never, no, we exchanged emails one time when I asked him for some, I can't even remember. He did that stream, remember, with those Midas touch guys? Yeah. And he said he had a text message where the guy, and I was like, hey, dude, can I get that text message? And he was like, I can't, I'm sorry. That is literally the only time I've ever communicated with Dave Portnoy in any way. Yeah. But I'm like, he's an interesting figure. I think I've defended Dave before, not just on the show, like on Twitter, in terms of the Me Too stuff and all this. I don't need to. I'm just like, I think this is important for a broader set of norms and all this other stuff. And by the way, if some guy is sitting on his couch and doesn't have a blue check like me, what makes him different than me? He's just responding to something that he believes in and thinks is bullshit. Most of these people, what they're really butthurt about is that they don't have a legion of fans who would do the same for them. Yeah. In my opinion. That's what they're really upset about.
And it's a lot of people, like you said, people who are under the umbrella of the big, the big corporation. Yes, they're in the system. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any show you think is still doing it right, though? Like, what other shows do you really respect that you think calls it like it is?
So, I mean, I respect individual people. And, like, so I've named a lot of them. I mean, in politics, like, guys like Tamat Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald. I'm trying to think about other, like, there's a lot of folks. Basically, if you're independent, I'm a lot more likely to trust you. So let me shout out some more center-left guys who, by the way, don't even agree with me. People like Matt Iglesias. He runs a newsletter. Josh Barrow, same thing. Like, these guys are on Substack. Even, actually, some of the Dispatch, which is like a Never Trump organization. The reason I trust and I respect all these people is they have an actual audience. I may not agree with it, but they have an actual audience. They have a direct subscriber relationship. Yep. Heather Cox Richardson, she's another one who's out there on Substack. So I like to trust people who are outside of the system and for whom I can at least know are saying what they really believe. Yeah. And that's all it is to me. If you and I don't agree, don't care. I'm in this game. I have a very thick skin at this point. Like, I genuinely could care less. It's more Like, what drives me crazy are the people who are inside of the system and who I know from personal experience they're fake. Like, I know you're fake.
Yeah.
What makes me upset is when they pretend like they're not.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I'm doing this because I believe in democracy. I'm like, no, you don't. I've literally seen you suck up to Trump people. And by the way, that's fine. It's all good. It's all in the game. Just admit it.
Yeah.
But they don't. So,
is there anyone that you'd be willing to say is the most full of shit person?
Ooh, the most full of shit person in Washington or media? I don't know. I can't give you one person.
Yeah.
I think there are contenders. Oh no, I'll give you it's Chris Hayes on MSNBC.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. He knows better.
Yeah.
So Chris was a guy. He was like a legit. He was a left wing guy, but that's fine. But he wrote for The Nation. He was an actual intellectual, a critique of a lot of the types of politics that he now practices. At this point, that man needs to pay his mortgage. He's a multimillionaire. He's got a nice cushy spot. 8 p.m. He's smart enough that he should not play the game, and he sold the fuck out. Some of them are too dumb to know that they're who they are.
Yeah.
People like Don Lemon. I don't hate Don. I do hate Don Lemon, but I don't think he's as full of shit in the same way. I think he's genuinely so stupid that he like believes in what he's doing. So that's like respectable in a way. But yeah, Chris Hayes on MSNBC is smart enough to know what he's doing is bullshit and continues to do it purely for the money. So I have no respect for him.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite literally the opposite of what you're doing. Quite literally the opposite. Right. So it's understood.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take another break here to talk about a new sponsor that I've been saying all week that we really enjoy, and that's Rhoback Activewear. We love Rhoback here. Their performance polos, Q-zips, and hoodies are simply the best fit, best feel. If you're watching on YouTube, you see me with the hat. I got my hoodie on as well. This thing's really comfortable, and they also recently released the performance joggers, and they're incredible. Honestly, really, they're not only comfortable, but they look so sleek, and that's obviously a great feature. So they're functional, versatile, and comfortable, and they're perfect for a nice fall day or a football Sunday. Rhoback's performance hoodies are the most comfortable hoodies out there. Walking around on a crisp fall day in the Windy City, Rhoback hoodies are your answer. Lightweight, but also soft, that you won't be able to take them off. So use code DOG on Rhoback.com for 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK. One more time, RHOBACK.com for 20% off all polos, Q-zips, hoodies, and joggers with code DOG. Seriously, go check Rhoback out. Really, really, really good stuff. All right, let's hop back into the interview. And now, has any of these places like tried to poach you yet? They're like, oh wow, that's working. They have a real fan base. Is that a thing?
They can't do it because anything that we would say would just fuck up their whole game. Like what I was talking. So let's say, okay, first of all, I would never work there. There's no point because of being compromised. But like, let's say it's even feasible. Let's say CNN or MSNBC like wanted to buy us. How would that work? Like I have attacked literally like half of the people who are on their staff. You know, like this is the issue, which is that these people all answer to like this. Like once you're in it, you're in it. And if you're out of it, you pretty much can't be brought in because the only way to be out of it, to be popular, is to fundamentally like be against these folks. Yeah. So I think the people who've taken notice, which is not a surprise, are the tech companies like YouTube, Spotify, Apple, because I mean, A, they see the numbers, but B, like they're platforms. They're not editorial organizations. Editorially, we don't fit in to anybody, but I don't want to work for any of these people. Like at the end of the day, like the only person I really want to work for is myself with Crystal. Like we have a great company. I love what we do. Yeah. I would see no utility in selling out to somebody like that. Yeah. It just wouldn't be to my benefit.
Yeah, you got a nice show at the Vic this weekend.
Yeah, we got the Vic Theater. Like,
yeah, you don't got to worry about anything.
Exactly.
Great. That's great, man. So what do you think? You said this is your first time here?
First time in Chicago.
First time here. So what are your outward thoughts heading in of what you
I landed 2 hours ago, full disclosure, so I haven't seen anything. Okay, first of all, traffic is terrible. Yeah. Uber guy explained that to me. I was like, why are we not taking the highway from the airport? He's like, no, bro. He's like, the highway is so crowded, we had to take the city streets.
And Fridays are the worst.
So I was like, wait. So in the middle of the day, it's actually more efficient to wait at traffic lights than to be on the highway. Because that's crazy.
Typically, yes.
Okay, that's fucking crazy. Number one. Two, just because I've spent so much of my adult life on the East Coast, the way that non-East Coast cities are laid out is so crazy because it's so big. Yeah. Like I'm having dinner with my buddy tonight, and it's 2 miles away. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I'm like, wow, like that's actually really far. But he lives even farther than that. So the city here is like wide, and it's really spread out. Even walking here, I'm in downtown Chicago-ish.
Right
I don't want
now?
to give away where
No,
we are,
no. You're in Lakeview. We're a mile from Wrigley Field right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, but we're in like a metropolis area, like semi-walkable, right? But still, when I'm walking, there's like strip malls around. I'm like, well, this is weird because I'm like in a city, but there's a fucking Walgreens right now. What's going on with the parking lot? What's happening? Yeah, so that's my impression of Chicago. It kind of reminds me of Miami in a weird way.
It's like a hybrid, you know.
It is a hybrid. It's like a car city, which is just weird.
Yes.
I don't really know. I've never been in a car city, or I've never lived in a car city before.
Yes, it's third largest city, I believe, still.
Wow.
It's still,
Wait, by metro area or by population?
I believe by metro pop.
Okay.
So,
did you grow up here?
Yeah, I grew up here.
Okay.
Born and raised. So, I think we're still holding on to that, but it still has like somehow a small city feel in a sense.
Got it.
So
let me turn the tables on you.
Yeah.
So, what is the most bullshit narrative about Chicago?
I don't know. Listen, certainly the crime is
Yeah.
what everyone likes to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm sure you've heard about when you first were going.
Yeah,
like,
when I posted, everyone's like, oh, watch out, bro.
Yep, exactly.
But the thing is, people always say that about New York, and I'm like, bro, the places in New York I'm going, like, I'm going to be fine.
Exactly. Yes. So, like, New York's different because there's just so many people around at all times.
Right.
And there was a point where New York had a cop on, like, every corner.
Yeah.
That would just camp out,
Right.
you know? So we
That's
don't
the
have
Manhattan
that.
I remember.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have that, which makes it, inherently more dangerous. But it is starting to. It seems like it is starting to creep in a little bit into places it wasn't before. Mm-hmm. But overall, it's not like
you're fine.
You're fine. Yes,
okay.
You're fine.
All right.
And like that's probably the biggest stereotype that I could say.
It is probably annoying. I could see that because I have friends in New York who are always
Yeah.
like, they're like, listen, they're like, I'm not saying it's better. They're like, but the idea that I'm like, can't go out to dinner because I'm gonna get shot when I live in Soho is fucking ridiculous.
Yes. More so, what gets me is that like how it's happening like almost everywhere, and like it's only the few places that are getting the microscope. It feels like
That's fair.
all right, like people say, oh, we're going to Florida, red state, whatever.
Right.
Like Miami has problems too.
Oh, dude. I have been to Miami many. You're exactly right. Yeah, walk around Miami at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's sketchy.
That's what I'm saying. That's a thing.
It's very much.
That's a little frustrating.
What else? What else you guys got? It is too cold. You got to be honest. It's fucking.
Oh,
freezing
the cold's brutal.
It's
but
horrible.
it also
even today it's cold.
Yeah. It's and this is nice.
No, I know.
This is nice.
People are walking around in what I'm wearing, and I'm freezing.
Yes.
And I'm like, but you seem normal.
Oh no, we're like, please give us this for like another month, and we'll be happy.
Yeah, for people who are listening, I think it's
like
what is
50.
Outside? Yeah, it's 50 degrees outside.
It's 50.
It's way too cold for me.
And we're like, right, Harry? Like we're just like, please give us this for maybe as long as we can, because I'm telling you, November, December hits, and it's.
Oh, wait, deep dish. So you've been to. Oh, go ahead.
Like last few days, we can see the sun. We're kind of just like holding
you guys
on.
are
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like if we got sun, it's gonna be a good day. That's the truth. There was a month. What was it? February, Harry, and there was one day of sunlight, and it was absurd.
Yeah.
Deep dish.
Yeah, deep dish versus New York because you guys have both been to New York.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
It's becoming a trend for like some Chicago people, especially more so. I'm just listening to the noise in this office because we always got people debating shit, and we got one guy who's like kind of anti deep dish. Deep dish is really good. It's a good pizza.
It's its own thing.
Yes, but it's not something like Chicagoans eat all the time.
Interesting.
We have a thin crust variation, and it's cut into squares, and that's what we're primarily eating. But deep dish is good.
Yeah.
Like if you're first time here, I would recommend trying it out if you want to try it.
I'll try it.
If you're
Yeah,
interested,
I'll try it.
But yeah, it's good, and I would say people do like it, and it's it's kind of unique. So, but I don't know, like it's just like Dave likes it actually, but Dave also likes New York. So I don't know. But it's two different styles. Like you can't compare them.
That makes sense. All right, last one. Chicago sports fans are assholes.
Passionate.
More so or not?
We're not Philly.
That's
you
fair.
know,
That's
we're
fair.
not Philly, and that's not no disrespect to Philly, but they're fucking
they're
hardcore.
assholes. They're
you know what I
assholes.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Philly.
I'll say it.
Or some of the New York people, or but we're definitely miserable, and we're definitely angry a lot. because our teams are, and we're just like, because you got to realize here,
Yeah.
these cold weather cities, you know, you live in DC, and it doesn't get too bad.
It's not like this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nothing like this. But it gets like 20, which sucks. That still sucks.
It sucks,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but you know, when it's the winter,
like minus 10.
you got nothing to look forward to. You know,
Yeah.
you have nothing, and you need those teams to play well.
Yeah.
It changes the vibe of the whole city. Like
Interesting.
like bars are packed.
So
because
Bears
people are
win,
watching
it's
games.
like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like November, Bears
Oh
up.
yeah, you'll go to the grocery store before the game, and there'll be jerseys everywhere. Even now, even when we stink, but yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Cool.
I don't know, but yeah, that's really I would say, to my estimation, unless you got anything else, Harry. Another stereotype.
I think that was good. You covered it all.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you know, from an outsider's perspective, like we have an easy mayor to crap on.
Oh my
which
God,
I'm sure
boy.
you've gotten endless
I
content
interviewed
from.
her once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, February 2020. Actually, it was Chicago had, I want to say, the third coronavirus case in America, maybe fourth.
Mm-hmm.
So this show you how early it was. And she was in D.C. for some reason. For some reason, she decided to come on our show. I don't know why. But anyway, but I remember I couldn't ask the questions I wanted to because we had to ask about COVID. And I remember being like, Mayor, you had the fourth case of corona. She's like, yes, she like went into, have you guys seen that Yelp review?
Yeah.
That she did?
Yes,
Dude,
yes.
That's psychotic. I mean, you're a fucking psycho. I want people to, if people don't know what I'm talking about, she left like this horrific Yelp review of a limo driver,
Yeah,
I
limo
want to say.
company, yeah.
I want people to go out and read this to just understand, like, this is what politicians are like. Like, they're egomaniacal psychopaths. And, like, having met a lot of them, they have the biggest egos. They love to be in control. As a guy who was a nerd and was a political nerd, I probably was at one time one of these people, the people who wanted to be like student council president and like, you know, in like 6th, 7th grade, just like little goody, like those people,
Yeah.
those are the people who run the country. Yeah. Yeah. So it should be scary.
That's tough when
Yeah.
you put that in perspective.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I want that to be the takeaway for folks.
Well, I'm sure George
Yeah.
Washington too. Like, how many would you say the percentage of people that you went?
Oh, they're all like that. Yeah.
and they were all
Yeah.
trying to get
Right,
into.
right. Well, that's the funny part, which is that I think the best thing that ever happened to me was going, because I was one of those people. And then I was around them, and I was like, oh, you guys kind of suck. You know, I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
actually,
yeah.
this is not.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, this really isn't cool at all. And
Yeah.
I was like, we're all kind of losers. And, you know, I mean, the Trump election was a big thing for me, too, because I was like, man, a lot of people do not like us. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, and for me, that was like the central question of my career has been, why are people so angry? And I think it's not that difficult to answer that question.
Yeah.
And figuring that out, and like, you know, a lot of the stuff we were talking about, I have friends who were not political in any way in college. And if anything, were like kind of Democrat, who are some of the most rabid right-wingers that I know today. And the reason is a lot of this cultural stuff, you know, it's like when you start going after sports and you start going after just like general, the way that people speak, like general American life and all that, like you don't know what you're fucking with in terms of the cultural backwinds. And I wish we could just put it back. Like, I think 2011 was a great time to be alive, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You're right. And that's the same thing going back to the whole crime in Chicago thing. It's like, I also don't know, because the whole fact of like, is it being more reported on?
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
And
that's
that, you know, there needs to be a study on that.
I'm
of
trying.
how-
I think if you look, this is also, by the way, the liberals always say this. They're like, well, you know, some crime is down. And I'm like, yeah, but if the homicide rate is up, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
So I think homicide here is very up, as far as I know.
Yeah.
That being said, being here is not, I mean, I would take this over. I was just in Portland. I mean, Portland is exactly the same, by the way, which is that some parts are really bad. Some parts are completely fine. Some are just like stunningly beautiful. I do think San Francisco is a fucking disaster. That is the one place where the meme is actually real. And you're like, oh, this is actually a nightmare. You're like, there actually is human shit everywhere. There actually are people. Dude, I went to this place in the Mission District, like a famous burrito spot, just to go, and literally outside a woman was shooting heroin into her neck in broad daylight.
No.
I couldn't believe it. LA, dude, I don't know if you guys have been, but like Skid Row, you have to see it to believe it. Like it's a human tragedy, like a disaster.
Yeah.
Like I have been to Cambodia and literally seen people who have lost, like hundreds of people who have like lost limbs to landmines, and like it reminded me of that level of like
No shit.
disaster. No, it's like being in a slum in India. It really is. Like it's It's horrific.
That's sad.
It is really sad. And that's why I don't want to make it political. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, look, like, because this is what always drives me. They're like, fuck San Francisco. I'm like, yeah, but some people have to live there.
Yeah.
Like, let's make life better there.
Yeah.
I wish that people really wanted to do that because
Yeah.
it sucks, man.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something the same way I feel passionate about. It's like, let's try to fix this. Why is everyone fucking like, everyone just likes to flee? And
well,
like,
people in the suburbs like to like take pictures of it and be like, look
yes,
at the shit that
exactly.
we're
It's like, I
missing.
just moved. I don't got to worry about anything.
Right. I mean, and look, I get that. If you want to move to the suburbs just to like live the suburban life, it's totally fine. But look, man, I lived in a city for 10 years. Like, living in a city is nice. It's fun.
Yeah.
You get to go out. You get to have fun. Like, it's a good time. It's a great place to be young. And I want people to have that experience, like, forever without being afraid. I don't know. It really bothers me that the people, because in a way, too, like, when you leave, that you're only just making sure that the worst people who are staying.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So are you, at the end of the day, though, are you an optimist, though? Like, you think... Or are you a pessimist? Like, you think like we're fucked?
Am I an optimist pessimist? I'm a I don't know how to say it. I'm like, I don't know, man. I've been pretty down in the dumps lately. I'm like fully convinced that we're probably going to get into a war with Russia. And I've just been thinking about like what that will actually look like as a society. But look, I have faith in people. Not all people, but I mean, I'm sure you guys see this. Like, it's fun. People are cool. Most people are pretty cool. And I live around a lot of people who I do not agree with at all, but it's fine. We walk our dogs and like talk about the weather or about how the UPS guy sucks. And like, that's just like shit. A lot of people,
that's it,
at the end of the day, like people's cringe beliefs aside, like most people are nice. And I've lived and have traveled all over the world. I think Americans are some of the best people there are. And like, I don't know, you call me out on this if you want. Like most people here in this country will give you the shirt off their back if and I'll tell you this. I've been in a lot of places. You stop people on the street and ask for directions. A lot of times people are going to be assholes. But here, no matter where I've ever been in America, like this is before the age of Google Maps, somebody will always stop. And like some people will walk with you. Even in New York, like New Yorkers who are assholes.
Yeah.
When I was in New York, like, people are cool, man.
Yeah.
That's just what I would do. My takeaway is I'm an optimist in the sense that like our people are good. And I think that's all. If you're on a long enough time scale, we'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. I like that. And then final thing.
Yeah.
October 14th, 2022.
Yes.
Who's the next president? Prediction.
That's today.
That's prediction. Your prediction not today.
October
so I don't
14th,
want, this is your prediction. I don't want people to, someone's going to take it out of context and throw a date on it. That's why I did that.
I got you. The next president of the United States, I think will probably be Donald J. Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
You believe
That's
so?
my prediction, yeah.
Now, is he as crazy as he seems off?
Yeah, he's exactly the same. This is what I will say to his credit, and I think this comes through. There's no difference. The only difference actually is he drops a lot more F-bombs whenever the camera's off. That's it. Yeah, the only difference is that he curses a lot more. But basically what you see on Twitter in person is I've spent 2 hours interviewing Donald Trump. He is basically the exact same. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that's admirable.
To an extent.
I've never met Joe Biden like on a one-on-one. I have been, I've seen him speak before. I mean, he was very different because it was 10 years ago and he was a lot more there. Obama, from what I heard, he is a lot more, he's like much more of an egomaniac. If that's even possible. Yeah, behind the scenes. The thing to remember with all these politicians, their egos are literally massive. Mm-hmm. So like with Obama, actually he got to start here in Chicago. It's kind of interesting. So he's the professorial type. Like if you were interviewing him, you would sit there, Eddie, and he would just speak at you. Yeah. Every once in a while, he may deign to allow you to ask a question. But you're not in charge, even if you're interviewing. Trump was a lot like that. Same thing. He's putting on a show. You have to like game the show to make sure that you can get a question in. From what I've heard with Biden, he's a little bit more affable, but man, they control access to him so tight that like you're never even gonna get that opportunity.
They're worried, right?
I mean, you should be.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and that's my takeaway too. Like I've just gone through some, and I'm neither. I don't.
I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Yeah,
by the way,
I'm
saying I'm giving you my analysis.
Yeah, your analysis.
I think he's going to win.
No. I'm not saying that. Like I'm just, are you left or right? I just once I realized that, like you just said, and that's the theme of this conversation, is it's become a narrative punch off.
Yeah.
And whoever's been able to craft a better narrative, that's who.
That's it.
That's who seems to win.
Right now is a good example, which is like we have high inflation, we have high crime, We have all this stuff. Like, what are the people saying they're actually going to do about it? Nothing. You know, the way that you get elected today is to just bash the other side. And until you fix that, I mean, look, on the one hand, it's been like that since the dawn of time. Everybody thinks that American politics was super, like, was really, like, idyllic. It wasn't. Like, we were talking, Andrew Jackson was being attacked because of his wife. She literally, I think she killed herself or died early because of the attacks.
I think Jefferson bought a newspaper company or something. Yes.
Well, not only that. I mean, Jefferson and Hamilton were savaging each other in the press. So look, on the one hand, it's always been this way, and we got through it. So that's why, like, in that way, that's why I'm an optimist. I just wish that our culture, not just our politics, could be a little bit more accepting. Because the stuff that really bothers me is whenever what really bothers me when I see people who aren't equipped to handle this get stuck in the melee. Yeah. So you know how somebody, just think about like when a celebrity or somebody will say something, they didn't mean anything bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they just get piled on, and they start doing those videos where like, I'm really sorry, like I didn't realize the harm that I had done, and you're just like, oh my God, like enough, stop. I think Lizzo recently said spaz.
Yes.
I forget what it is. Like
exactly
she took spaz out. And I was just like, Lizzo, nobody thinks that you said that in like a mean way.
No.
Just fucking let it go.
Yeah.
Move on. Like, why does this need to be a thing? That's what really gets me.
Yeah. And like corporations need to figure that out ASAP because it's like once they realize like, hey, it's not that big of a deal, people will move on.
Right.
Like a lot will be solved with that.
See, in a way though, you and I don't want them to move on because our success is because they are all doing that shit. Because we're the only ones who are like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. You're right. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a very good point. But all right, Saagar, thanks so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It was fun to be here.
And where can people...
Breaking Points on YouTube, eSaagar, Instagram, Twitter, all of that.
Check awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
All right. See you, everybody. That's it for today.